Welcome to Face University. Good Tuesday. Happy Tuesday night, everybody. This is Jasmine here. We're going to get you started with some opening slides and information. If you're here for Healthy Choices, Bright Futures, you are in the right place with our presenters, Leah and Haley. I'll share a little bit more about who is presenting tonight. Um, this is the Substance Abuse and Prevention team here at Denver Public Schools. They provide parents and educators with the best information and tools to engage kids so that they can lead healthy, thriving lives. So to effectively promote the health of young people, these prevention efforts need to work across a lot of disciplines. So Haley has spent the last 20 years as a DPS school social worker promoting resilience and growth with youth. Her current role focuses on substance abuse prevention and intervention training schools teams with evidence-based programs. Haley is a licensed clinical social worker and holds a master's in social work from the University of Denver and is currently a place for upstream prevention, social emotional learning, and timely intervention for behavioral and substance abuse issues. Leah is a licensed prevention specialist since August 2016. And prior to joining the team, she worked at the Denver Office of Drug Strategy, where she worked to connect youth in Denver with resources to make safe and healthy decisions. And both Leah and Haley are parents in Denver Public Schools. Now that we've got some info out about them, there's a few other things to cover. We have our DPS land acknowledgement. We want to recognize that locally Native people have a unique and notable history that's impacted the development of the Front Range over centuries. It's also important that we ground ourselves in the DPS land acknowledgement written by Dr. Tink Tinker in collaboration with our Native American culture and education team in 2021. The DPS community acknowledges our Indigenous relatives in memorial. We acknowledge the close relationship the Arapaho, Cheyenne, Ute Mountain Ute natives of other tribal nations continue, to have with the waters, plants, and all moving things that call this land home. We pledge our respect for those enduring Indigenous connections to the place we now call Colorado. To our students and employees who are part of our tribal nations, thank you for being an important part of the DPS community by choosing to learn and work at DPS each day. So we are working with family and community engagement. We believe that when families and communities thrive, every learner thrives. To help us be able to thrive today, we do have interpretations in English, Spanish. We also have a globe, that icon that you can select. If you're on your computer, you will select between Spanish or Vietnamese. If you have your phone device, there will be three ellipses or three dots. From there, you'll select translate, and then you will select your language. So I'm going to go ahead and let our interpreters introduce that in their language, and then we'll set up those channels.
Yoda?
I think Manuel is going to make Manuel, are you going to give the instructions? Okay, I can go ahead and give the instructions. Buenas noches a todo el mundo, las personas que van a recibir interpretación al español. Por favor, en unos minutos van a ver el globo terrestre que va a estar en la parte inferior derecha de su pantalla. Hacer un clic ahí y elegir español como idioma de preferencia. Si están en su teléfono, son tres puntitos que están en la parte superior derecha de la pantalla. Por favor, hacer un clic y elegir interpretación o traducción y después elegir español como idioma de preferencia. Okay, I'm ready to be sent to the room.
Xin kính chào quý vị, tên tôi là Johnny Thanh, là thông dịch viên tiếng Việt Nam cho cái buổi Face University bữa nay làm việc với quý vị. Vậy trong ngày hôm nay có hai diễn giả, một là cô Haley là một nhân viên xã hội và chuyên môn về ngăn ngừa những cái vấn đề về lạm dụng ma túy, và sau đó là cô Leah cũng là một cái chuyên gia về ngăn ngừa lạm dụng ma túy. Chúng ta ở đây sẽ có thông dịch viên tiếng Tây Ban Nha và tiếng Việt Nam. Quý vị nếu mà dùng máy tính bàn hoặc là bảng thì quý vị sẽ nhấp vào cái biểu tượng hình cầu. Một lát nữa người ta sẽ trưng cái biểu tượng hình cầu và quý vị nhấp chuột vào đó để chọn cái ngôn ngữ tiếng Việt Nam mà quý vị muốn nghe. Hoặc là nếu quý vị cũng có thể dùng cái biểu tượng hình tròn có 3 dấu chấm là chữ more đó để chọn cái ngôn ngữ mà quý vị muốn nghe. Và trong giây lát họ sẽ đưa cái biểu tượng này lên. Xin cảm ơn. Thank you, I'm ready. You are mute. You are mute, Jasmine.
I'm sorry about that. We also do have Arabic interpretation that has arrived tonight. So I'm going to let our Arabic interpreter introduce her channel in Arabic as well. So if you can just let Arabic families know that there is a globe icon that they can use to translate to Arabic. And if they're on their phone, they'll click the three dots and click translate to be able to get interpretation.
Okay, I was on muted. Hi, I am the Arabic interpreter for tonight's meeting. أهلا وسهلا، أنا المترجمة باللغة العربية لاجتماع اليوم.
Thank you. Give me just a moment to set up those channels, and we'll keep moving forward. Okay, our interpretation channels have started. So next for our presentation, we want to make sure that families also have the correct name as we are taking attendance for today's presentation. So to be able to qualify for that gift card, we need to know that you're here. You'll also need to complete the survey at the end of our presentation tonight. So to be able, if you already have your first and last name, you don't need to change anything. If your name says something like cell phone or Zoom, you want to change the name. So what you'll do is you'll hover over your screen. In the top right, there are three dots. When you click on those three dots, then one of the options you'll be able to see is to rename yourself. Then you'll go ahead and just hit change when you're done putting your first and last name. If you struggle with this at all, don't be afraid to type into the chat. Yeah, that'll let me as a host or one of our other co-hosts know, hey, I'm confused about how to change my name. Can you help me? My name is this. And we'll be helping you guys one-on-one as we can throughout the presentation. But most of you have your first and last name already. That's really helpful. Thank you for doing that. We do have the chat feature tonight, but we have microphones muted since there are so many of us. We will give you the opportunity to share questions throughout the presentation, and we'll collect them all to answer at the end. We do encourage your participation that way. You're also still welcome to send those reactions as we share, or raise your hand and one of us are able to unmute you if you want to share something out loud during our Q&A. We do believe that parents have dreams for their children and want what's best for them. All parents have capacity to support their child's learning. Parents and school staff should be equal partners, and the responsibility for building partnerships between schools and home rests primarily with us school staff, especially school leaders. And remember, in this space, we do have norms to make sure that we all have a great learning experience. First is respect and trust. Make sure we're listening to each other, we're withholding judgment, and creating a safe space to share. We do believe everybody's voice matters. We want to allow everybody to contribute, and we do value your wisdom as families in this space. Different opinions are welcome. We encourage you to share openly and stay open to others' opinions, even if we disagree. Make sure your sharing is supportive. Offer that advice to others when asked, and honor parenting struggles and differences with compassion. And above all, make sure you withhold personally identifiable information. We don't want to share birthdays, addresses, phone numbers, or anything like that in this space. So with that, I'll go ahead and let our presenters start. Thanks so much for being here, Leah and Haley. We look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you, Jasmine. Let me go ahead and share my screen. All right, we will get started. Again, thank you, Jasmine. Thank you, Face, for having us here. And thank you to everybody who's in attendance for giving up your Tuesday night to hang out with us for an hour or so. As Jasmine mentioned, my name's Leah Raffa. I'm with the DPS Substance Use Prevention team. I am part of a larger team in DPS. Our team has been around since 2015. We were created as a response to the legalization of recreational marijuana in Colorado. And we have a goal of supporting schools and students with substance use prevention and early intervention. As we move forward today, we are hoping that you all, by the end of this hour, will be able to recognize the different forms of nicotine, cannabis, alcohol, and fentanyl, and also understand some of the harms associated with those. We want to take a look at why our youth are using substances, and also what can you all as parents do to support your kids. But let's start with an inclusive welcome. So in the chat, I would love for you all to think back to when you were a student. What, if any, substance use prevention did you receive? And as people are
Esmeralda shared DARE as one of the programs.
DARE. Yes, I was a student of DARE myself. Yeah, some of us might remember DARE, maybe the This Is Your Brain on Drugs, the Just Say No campaign. And while all of these programs had great intentions, research actually shows that they were not effective. They really utilized strong visual scare tactics. Some of you all may remember maybe you had a crashed car in front of your school around prom time to educate you about the dangers of driving under the influence. And those all elicited very strong emotions, but they weren't effective in the long term. So what we're going to do today is look at some of the things that we all as family members can do to support our students make healthy choices with substance use. But first, we're going to look at the data. So, went too far. Looking at this graph, this is from the Healthy Kids Colorado survey. So Healthy Kids Colorado survey is a survey that's done in DPS schools and actually schools across the state of Colorado on every odd year. So the last survey that we have data from is from 2013, and we're actually schools are currently giving out the survey. So we'll get updated data soon. But if you look at this graph, you can see that substance use has decreased pretty significantly since 2015. And actually, between 2019 and 2023, substance use across all categories decreased by about 50%, which is amazing. And something we want to highlight with that data is that most kids aren't using. So I think for a lot of us, maybe we've heard from our kids that every time they walk into a middle school bathroom, there's a bunch of kids vaping, it smells like bubble gum, and it's so annoying. And I get it. It is annoying, but also most kids aren't using. And there are so many pro-social activities that kids can be doing that are healthy. And that's what we really want to highlight. But that doesn't mean that we don't need to intervene with those students that are using and address that as well. So what we're going to start with today is looking at those top 4 substances that are used in DPS. So we're going to look at alcohol, we're going to look at cannabis, vaping, nicotine, and then we're also going to look at fentanyl, because even though it is not one of the top substances used by our DPS students, it is also so dangerous that it's a large enough concern that we want to address it and make sure you have the tools needed to talk to your kids about the substance and all of these substances. So diving in with alcohol, as you saw in that graph that I showed, it is one of the top substances used in DPS. And historically, it has been the number 1. However, in 2023, it did tie with vaping. And with alcohol, we know that teens that use alcohol are more likely to engage in unhealthy and risky behaviors because drinking lowers inhibitions, which can lead to driving impaired, getting in fights. And then also alcohol harms the developing brain. So we want to make sure that our young people give their brains the best chance that they can to fully develop. And we know that brain development doesn't start or doesn't stop until you're in their 30s. Also, utilizing alcohol at an early age can lead to dependence later on in life. And that's what this graph shows. So looking at this graph, which is from SAMHSA, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, you can see that if a young person starts drinking alcohol before the age of 13, they have almost a 50% chance of developing problematic use later on in life. Whereas if they wait till they're 20, 21, that decreases to less than 10%. So the message that we really want to get across to our young people is to delay use. We understand that it might be tempting to experiment, but the later that you can wait, the later you give your brain a chance to develop. And Haley's going to dive into that a little bit more here in a minute. So if we move on to nicotine. So these days, most of the kids in DPS, and I think everywhere, are utilizing vapes. So what is a vape? Vape is an electronic nicotine device. When people vape, a liquid, which is sometimes called vape juice, e-liquid, it becomes an aerosol, and that aerosol is inhaled. And it's important to note that that aerosol is not just water. The aerosol that's inhaled when you vape nicotine obviously contains nicotine, which we know is a very addictive chemical. It also has other contaminants and metals in the vapor. And then also sometimes vape devices include THC, which is a psychoactive chemical found in cannabis. And because vaping is so addictive and contains such toxic chemicals, we really want to encourage our students and young people to avoid vaping altogether. And so looking at what a vape is, this picture shows vapes that were confiscated from one of our DPS schools. Right now, the popular vape that is being used is the Geek Bar, also Lost Mary. And these are fun. They attract young people. They have modern designs. Sometimes they have games to play on them. Lots of fun flavors, bubblegum, cotton candy. And one vape, for example, has a ton of puffs on it. For example, Geek Bar Pulse can contain roughly 15,000 puffs, which is the equivalent to 50 to 100 cigarettes. So they're very addictive. They have a lot of nicotine. Also the tobacco and nicotine industry, along with the fun flavors that attract young people, they also are developing products that make it easy for young people to hide vapes. So this picture here with the purse was actually confiscated at one of our schools. And it's a vape, but it doesn't look like one. And we're also hearing from a lot of our school teams that vapes are being disguised to look like highlighters. So these are just things that you as parents should know to look for. And then last, when we talk about nicotine, I want to highlight nicotine pouches, which are being used by young people. So nicotine pouches are small smokeless pouches that contain synthetic nicotine, and they're placed between the gum and the lip, and they're very easy to hide. They're smokeless, and they deliver high levels of nicotine. Some of the more popular brands are Zyn, Velo, On. And as you can see here, they're just a very small pouch. So really quickly, what is the legal age to buy tobacco in Colorado? So I'm just curious what y'all know. I'm going to have Jasmine launch a poll really quickly. Okay, what do y'all think? 18, 21, 16, 25. A lot of 18s. Okay. 18, 21 are the popular. 54, so 18. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll. Share the results. And let you all know that 21 is the legal age to purchase tobacco along with alcohol and cannabis in the state of Colorado. I also want to highlight that tobacco along with alcohol and cannabis, it's against Colorado state law to possess that on any school grounds, and that all schools are nicotine free. So next up is cannabis. So cannabis can be consumed. Oh, my post jumped back up. Sorry. Exit out. Okay, hopefully that worked. Cannabis can be smoked. It can be eaten. It is in drinks, in blunts, in pipes, bongs. And also, as you can see in this picture, like vape products, are also marketed in ways that attract young people. So all of the products in this picture are products that contain THC. And you can usually tell because if it's sold legally in a dispensary, they have usually a little symbol, which you can see in most of these, that have a little cannabis leaf, or they might say THC on them. Another thing to highlight with cannabis edibles is that they usually have the serving size for one of the products is very small. So for example, one cookie might contain like 4 servings of THC, so it's easy to overconsume. We also see THC in a lot of vapes. And frequently our vape products also have high THC. And this is important because THC concentrations have risen dramatically in the past couple years. As a result, primarily to commercialization of it. But for example, when I graduated from high school, the average THC potency was around 5 to 6%. Nowadays, it is very common to find cannabis that contains THCs in the 90%. And the reason that's important is because that cannabis is very different from what was being used 15, 20 years ago, and has much different impacts. High concentrate THC can lead to a higher risk of addiction, psychosis, depression, anxiety, sleep problems, and even suicidal ideation. And then last, like I said, we're going to talk about fentanyl. And I do want to highlight again that most kids are not using illicit prescription drugs or opioids, but because of the risks of fentanyl, it's something that we think is important for you all as parents to know and for you to talk to your kids about. And this is the reason why. A lethal dose of fentanyl is less than a grain of rice, not grass, sorry. So it is very easy to consume a lethal dose of fentanyl. And a lot of times fentanyl is showing up in laced pills. So frequently fentanyl overdoses occur because somebody takes something that they don't think wouldn't think would have any fentanyl in it, perhaps a prescription Adderall. And because it is an illicit pill, it could be laced with fentanyl. And if you look at this picture, it shows 5 fake pills that contain fentanyl and 5 pills that were prescribed from a pharmacy. At least to me, they all look identical, and I would not be able to tell the difference. And in Colorado, 6 out of 10 illicit pills that are found on the streets of Denver contain fentanyl. So really, really getting the point across to your young people that unless a pill is prescribed to them by their doctor, they should not be taking it. It's also important to know as parents that a lot of the ways that young people are getting illicit pills is online. So being sure to monitor your young person's online behavior. If you're interested in learning more, Connect Effect Colorado is a great resource. I also want to highlight here, I think that Jasmine shared out these slides, and if not, I know she's going to. There is a link to the Denver area resources to get Narcan. Narcan is a brand name of naloxone, which is given to somebody who's overdosing from an opioid, and it can reduce or reverse the effects of the opioid and save lives. So something that everyone can have. You can actually walk into any Denver Public Library and get a naloxone for free. And with that, I am going to turn it over to Haley.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Haley Figueroa, and I, as Jasmine mentioned earlier, am just grateful to be doing this work in DPS. I'm a parent as well as a school social worker, and just thanks for being here. Thanks for showing up to learn about this important topic. So excited you're here. We are going to touch on student substance use and what you as parents can do to support your kids. Warning signs. So this is something we wanted to hit on for you all. And so this can be tough to really discern kind of what's going on. But some signs here, if your child's withdrawn, secretive, suddenly really struggling in school, these changes could point to substance use. So we want to have you recognize those signs early to give the best chance to connect your child to support and help. One thing I'll say too, so as you see here, some behavioral red flags, again, withdrawal, secrecy, lying, breaking curfew, losing interest in school, could be some possible physical symptoms such as bloodshot eyes, frequent nosebleeds, sudden weight gain or loss, and always just asking yourself questions. Are these changes sudden and intense? Do they interfere with their daily life or activities? Are there physical health concerns going on as well? One thing I'll say here too is that you know your teen best. So when something feels off, trust your instincts. I have worked with a lot of parents that have had students in recovery, and they said, you know, I brought this to my doctor, I brought this to someone, and they didn't take my concerns seriously. So I'll just say, you know your kid the best, and if you feel like they need treatment, keep going and connect them with the help that you feel like they need. Yeah, so just let's shift a little bit and love for you to all to participate in the chat. Why do adolescents start using substances? So in your experience as a parent, um, as a person you growing up, what were some reasons that you think? Yeah, Alicia, great. Peer pressure, sudden change, curiosity's huge. Yeah, love that one, Katie. Yep, they see their parents do it, right? There's a modeling component. Fitting in, bullying. Yep, you guys are nailing it. All of these are contributing factors. Family problems, trauma, all the things. So yeah, interestingly, we've kind of taken a deep dive into this and a look at this through some student focus groups that we're able to do in DPS. And our kids are reporting that flavors, just as some people mentioned curiosity, right? Flavors are a really big piece. They mask the harsh taste and smell of tobacco. And our youth report, here's a direct quote, the flavors and the smell of vapes are so appealing. They report interest and curiosity in the products. Some of the flavors are like sugar booger, banana butt. So if your kid's room smells like fruit, strawberries, banana, it may not be fruit salad, right? We want to look at, is this something that could be related to substance use? We're going to hit a bit on marketing. I have a slide here. So increase in retail and social media advertising. You know, when I was growing up, we didn't have social media, obviously. And so for our kids today, messages spread through networks. So Snapchat, Instagram, all of the popular socials. And here are some of the ads that we are seeing and that are being pushed out to our kids. So absolutely targeting youth. Here's a couple of local billboards as well as social media ads, obviously, are you know, really pushing our kids towards smoking or towards vaping. I want to touch on mental health for a minute. Mental health issues are real. So many of our young people are struggling. You've all seen it in the news, both nationally and locally. The data is showing that our young people are really struggling. We need to be able to help our young people connect and with the trusted adults, right? And help, and then cope in ways that don't come at a cost to them, like substance use. So here's some of our local Healthy Kids Colorado data. Leah was mentioning that survey's in the field right now, but about 1 in 5 of our kids are saying that they disagree. Their stress level is not manageable most days. And then 1 in 4 are feeling so sad or hopeless that they stop doing some of their usual activities. So we know it's real. We know there's concerns that are happening and that are coming up for our young people, and they need healthy options for coping. Also, love to get your voices in the chat and really help you think about and reflect on what are some of the strengths you see or some of the coping skills you see with your own children or with young people today that will buffer them from substance use. Yeah. So
Anna shared communication.
what's that, Jasmine?
Anna shared
Oh,
communication, maybe a
awesome.
support. Yep.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you.
And yeah.
Sports is huge, healthy relationships. Yep, I'm seeing those come in. That's just really art projects. So yeah, you guys are hitting it absolutely. Connecting with healthy outlets, healthy relationships. Church is a huge piece.
I also saw art and trust in some individual chats.
Totally. Right on. Yep. So interestingly, there's a study that is really interesting to research and look at. It's called the ABCD study. Really fascinating. It's the largest long-term research study that follows about 11,000 kids from age 10 to adulthood to look at development and specifically identify what are the risk and resiliency factors for youth around substance use. Their latest work has highlighted these 3 areas, which I feel like are so right on. So the first one is longer sleep. And I actually see some folks putting that in as well. So really can combat stressors linked with substance use initiation. So we know when kids' mental health is suffering, that they're oftentimes turn to things such as substance use to do that coping. So longer sleep is going to be a key resiliency factor. Youth perceptions that substances are harmful is another huge one. So when youth are perceiving that cannabis, nicotine, and alcohol are harmful to their health, they're going to be less likely to use, which makes sense. Another piece, which is why we're so grateful you're here, is parental knowledge and monitoring. So our goal in the next 20 minutes is really to up your skills and to be able to give you a lot of tools in order to speak with your kids, to have the knowledge and be empowered to have these conversations with your students. This is a really interesting study also that I wanted to highlight. In about 20 years, Iceland went from absolutely the worst rates of youth substance use to absolutely the lowest rates of substance use. So really thinking about how the heck did they do that? So the percentage of 15-year-olds who had been drinking in the past 30 days went from 42% in 1988 to 5% in 2016. Cannabis rates over that 20-year span went from 17% to 7%. Cigarettes, in those years, kids were more smoking cigarettes. It wasn't, vaping didn't hit the market until 2007. Cigarettes went from 23% of youth smoking to 3%. Just thought this study is so fascinating. This research was led by Dr. Harvey Milkman. And so some of the things that they looked at of how did they turn this around? How did they really do this? Parents spending double amount of time with their kids, after school activities, parents committing to boundaries and rules around substance use, installing a curfew. I think it was like a 10 p.m. curfew. No advertising for alcohol or drugs was allowed in Iceland. So the whole community kind of came together and said, we're going to change this dynamic. So some examples there of how a community really worked together to decrease youth substance use. So obviously limiting all advertising for our kids would be really tough in Denver. It'd be great to do, but what are some tangible things that we as parents can do? So you all play a critical role in prevention and intervention for your kids. I know it's easy. I have 4 teenagers myself, and it's easy to think, well, my kid doesn't really care what I think, and sometimes they act like that. But I can tell you that I have had the privilege of being able to meet with students that are really suffering from substance use concerns, and almost always their parents are such a big person who they want to make proud and who they want to please. Um, so I will say lectures don't work. It actually kind of turns off kids, makes them shut down. The other thing I would say about like starting this conversation and talking to your kids is that some people think you're going to cause young people to start using drugs by talking about it, and it's actually the opposite. And in fact, we know that knowledge is power, right? And setting those boundaries and limits with kids and letting kids know what you think and giving them information is a really powerful protective factor. So as you're thinking about doing these conversations with your kids, think about conversation, not confrontation or accusation, but just like an open-ended conversation, even tonight after you get off this meet, to say, hey, I just went to this presentation. I learned some things about substance use. Can I share them with you? And I'm interested in what you know. And educating yourself about the risks, starting that conversation is going to be a really huge piece as well. One of the things that would love to just arm you all with is some information about the brain. My own kids will ask me, why is it okay for you and not me? Or students that I work with might ask me this. And I usually say, well, my brain's about as good as it's going to get. But fortunately for you, I'm a fully developed adult. But for students, we know that, and for our young people and our children, we know they have years and years of brain development and potential ahead of them. So we really want our kids to know that their brains are under construction from about age 10 until about age 25. And because of that, your brain is really sensitive to external influences like substance use. So we really want to talk with kids about that. I want to hit on the second point, and then we're going to watch a video that really kind of dives into, and you can share with your young people about what exactly is going on in the brain. But the second piece, Leah really started and hit on this in her piece, is that we know that the earlier that kids start, the more likely they are to have a lifetime of challenges. So our kids that start using, you saw that chart at 13 or 14, we know that their risk really increases for addiction. It's also linked to problematic behavior, strained relationships, poor academic outcomes, greater contact with the criminal justice system, and increased mental health problems. So there's a lot of reasons that we want to prevent use and also intervene if we have children or students who are using substances. Take a minute to watch this video. So this is from our partners at Rise Above. Oh, let's see. I can't hear it, Leah. Hey, Leah, I think we need to turn it up. It's not playing.
Haley, you said it's not working.
Yeah, we couldn't hear the sound.
Oh.
Unless Jasmine, could you hear?
No, I could not hear it. So make sure that you have that sound optimized, and then you can try to just share that tab. That might help as well.
Great. Okay.
There it is.
The human
You're good.
brain is powerful, really powerful. Did you know it would take 83,000 supercomputers to achieve just 1% of what the brain can do in a single second? Even though our brains are powerful, they are extremely fragile, especially in our early years. Did you know that our brains are still developing well into our 20s? See, our brains don't develop all at once. Different parts of the brain mature at different rates. Teenagers experience the toughest phase of this development, which creates challenges for them and the people around them. There are two main parts of the brain that grow at different rates during adolescence: the limbic system and the prefrontal cortex. The limbic system is the primitive emotional center of your brain. It develops early and seeks pleasure. When you do something fun or exciting, the limbic system rewards you by releasing dopamine, a chemical that makes you feel good. Dopamine tells your brain, "Hey, that was great, let's do it again." The prefrontal cortex, on the other hand, is the rational, logical decision-making part of the brain. It looks out for you by keeping the limbic system in check. That's the goal, at least. Difficulties during adolescence come from the fact that the prefrontal cortex develops slowly and doesn't mature until around the age of 25, while the limbic system and reward center are in full force. Because the prefrontal cortex is underdeveloped, it can't always resist the impulsive emotional limbic system. That means that teenagers' brains are wired to seek pleasurable experiences, even ones that could be risky or harmful. When we make decisions, it's a tug of war between the two parts of the brain. As teenagers, our limbic system is much stronger and usually wins. And because the limbic system sends out dopamine, a highly desirable reward, the brain will seek out that behavior again and again. The more we repeat behaviors that release dopamine, the more likely behaviors will become habits hardwired into our brains. So by the time the prefrontal cortex has matured, impulsive, risky habits can be very hard to break. The teen brain is unique, and these key differences make teens more susceptible to drug abuse and addiction. A strong chemical drive towards pleasurable activities, limited impulse control, and a moldable brain, which means that the choices made now leave lasting impressions. Combined, these factors explain why 90% of addictions start in the teenage years.
All right, yeah, I really like that video that highlights that, teenage brain is wired for reward and risk taking, but they don't think through consequences, have very limited in that prefrontal cortex. So definitely a bit of a perfect storm that's going on with our kids in the teen years. So just want to really appreciate the comments that are coming in. So thank you so much for all your participation, and we'll definitely get that video to you all so you can make sure to show it to your kids, or to really think about how you can articulate that message to your students. Yeah, moving on. What is the number one factor impacting our adolescents and their substance use? Actually, in the research, the number one thing is access, right? So when we think about access, it's like if our kids can't get substances, right, they're not going to be using them. So where are they accessing them? So Denver actually was really forward on this in our community and passed the flavor ban. So that actually goes into effect right now. The voters upheld it. And so we should see that hopefully less flavors are hitting our children here in Denver because of that flavor ban, which is a really exciting thing that's happened. But so again, community, right? We need to go upstream. We need to limit access. We need to be really clear about our policies protecting kids. Also, we as parents can limit access, right? So what can kids do? It's monitoring. The number one thing that parents can do is parental monitoring. So what this looks like is, just as Leah was mentioning, there's all those stealthy, sneaky devices like the vape that look like the purse or the highlighter, or even disguised as like video games or school supplies. So you as parents having the knowledge and understanding of what those devices are, and honestly, a valuable thing to do is taking them away from your kids. So making sure they don't have access to them, sending them messages that you don't want them to have those vapes. So we also need to monitor where our kids are going and where they're at after school, on the weekends, those such things as well. Yeah, this is from we have a program in Denver Public Schools called Teen Intervene. So this is from Dr. Ken Winters. So he wrote this article that's linked here, and it is what are 5 things that parents can do. So you'll see his number 1 there is monitoring as well. Appropriate role modeling. Many of you have already hit that in the chat. So what does that look like? What are my behaviors? How am I modeling for my children? So really appreciated some of the discussion in the chat about that. Always important is building that warm, supportive relationship for your kids as well. And then communication and being really super clear about your roles is hugely important. So As I mentioned, I'm a parent of teenagers, and the rules in my house are really clear. There is no drinking until age 21, period. It's illegal. I tell my kids it's illegal. And also because I'm your parent and I care about your brain and I do this work, I know that it's not good for you. And I know that your brain needs a full shot to develop. And so we are really clear about these rules with our kids. And, you know, my kids will say things like, well, I'm going to this party and everybody else is going to be using, and I'm going to be the only one that's not. And I always tell my kids, take this as an opportunity to practice some refusal skills with them, to practice what is something that you would feel comfortable saying. To your friend or to someone that offers you that alcohol or a vape. And I always say, feel free to throw me under the bus. As you know, everybody knows that your mom is really strict, and just say, my mom is going to ground me. I definitely couldn't do that. So, give them an out, help them save face. Say, you haven't met my mom yet. So those are going to be really key, huge things. I also think that kids learn by having consequences. So we know that it's a normal developmental thing to push those boundaries, to push the envelope. My own kids do it. Kids that I work with in Denver Public Schools do it. You got to have a plan when your child breaks the rules that you set. So understanding what are going to be those consequences, what is that course correction, and how do we work with our kids when inevitably they don't always make the best choice. Talked about awareness of their peer relationships, who they're hanging out with, where they are really key pieces as well. Tips for starting that conversation. So I think about my whole parenting journey, and I think we spend a lot of time as parents worrying about preschool and what we did when they were babies. And I think there's less formats to talk about teens and some of the struggles that teens are facing. There's pretty big things that could have a huge impact on our kids and kind of take things off course for them for a long time. Some of the things you want to think about when you're approaching your kid around this topic is start with empathy. We know this approach is going to help them connect to care more. We want to be non-judgmental. We want to have consistent, frequent conversations. This isn't like a checkbox moment. It's not a one and done. We want to be good listeners to our kids and really understand their perspectives and where they're coming from. Again, helping kids through these conversations with them build those coping and refusal skills. And then again, be clear about your rules and the reasons why you have these rules. Yeah, closing towards the end here, and then want to get to your questions. Connecting students who are struggling. So as you see here, we have a continuum. This comes from the Stanford Reach Lab, has this graphic in a lot of their courses. Anytime that we're presenting to a classroom of kids or a group of kids, or even all of you as parents, your kids across this call, we know that there are going to be kids that have never used, right? As Leah mentioned, in DPS, we think those numbers are close to 75% of kids that have not used. We also know there's going to be kids that are using monthly, recreationally, and then also
nó dựa lại trong trường hoặc là trong những cái Denver Health Main Campus, tức là cái
dando señales de codependencia. Así que queremos
the approach is different for kids that are at these different phases. Never used, we want to be doing positive reinforcement with those kids and really acknowledging that they are making good decisions and that is a very solid path towards helping their brain fully develop and not inviting more problems in their life. And then for our kids who are struggling, right? So we want to try to course correct and help kids see that, there are real consequences to their use and they need to decrease or stop their use. And then for students who are experiencing some, real physical dependence and substance use disorder, we really want to connect those kids to treatment. We want to hold the thought that treatment works, right? And that there is help out there and that we want to be supportive and empathetic and we want to work alongside kids to really get them the help that they need. Great partner in this work is the Denver Health School-Based Health Centers. We have 19 of them throughout. All DPS students are welcome to get services there. We have the main campus program. There are cessation programs such as My Life, My Quit, where it's like a text to quit line where a kid can communicate with a counselor like myself, set a quit date, get support towards that goal. Talk to your child's pediatrician. They have access to some resources such as nicotine reduction therapies and other supports that can help your your child or a student along this path of decreasing their substance use. We have a whole list here of community providers that you can connect with and help your kid decrease their use, which we know is really critical for turning things around.
Amazing. Thank you, Haley. So we want to end on kind of a highlight. I'm going to share a story that our partners from Sources of Strength tell a lot, and it's about the Brooklyn Bridge. So thinking back to the time of construction, when the Brooklyn Bridge was being built, it was going to be one of the largest suspension bridges in the world. Enormous sums of money and effort went into the construction of the bridge. And years into construction, residents of Manhattan and Brooklyn began to complain that even though they always saw construction crews and supposed work, there was yet to be any tangible sign of a bridge. So as the complaints continued, and people became more unified in their voices, wondering where their money was being spent on, the architect of the bridge began to explain that they were building, that there was no bridge because they'd spent years building below the waterline, and that he and his crew had pioneered innovative and revolutionary technique points to provide anchor points in the riverbed. And it was only because of that work that the bridge could stand the test of time. So it's sometimes nice to reflect on that story as a parent or as an educator who's working with youth. A lot of the time, the work that we're doing is building below the waterline, and it might not feel like anything's happening or like you're getting across to your kid or you're making a difference, but you just might not see the effort, the work of your effort until years down the future. So with that said, thank you everyone for being here. We'd love to open it up for questions.
Right. And while she is taking questions, feel free to type them into the chat. You can raise your hand if you'd like to come off mute and share. I'm going to go ahead and open our closing survey as well. If you want to get a head start on filling that out, we do expect you to fill it out to let us know we can confirm your attendance. We will begin to mail gift cards next week. So first thing tomorrow, we'll be sending confirmation emails. So make sure that you're looking for a confirmation. Some people shared their mailing address, some people did not, but we do need to confirm that you're in the Denver area, so please be sure to let us know. But here comes that survey, and we look forward to your questions. Okay. All right, that survey should have popped up for you. Again, be looking for an email from me to confirm in the next week, and then we will start to mail those out, so you'll see them in the next 3-4 weeks maximum. Thanks. Right. And Dominic, the survey should have popped up on the screen. I'm gonna go ahead and I'll put a link in the chat as well if it didn't pop up for you.
And I am also going to put, oh, maybe not, I'm breaking things. Our general email in the chat. It's just preventionservices@dpsk12.net. If anyone thinks of a question or wants to reach out with any concerns, thoughts, anything, that will go to both Haley and myself.
Okay, I was able to get a link if you're not able to fill it out now, but make sure that you get it filled out so that we can mark you as attending to the end. Sorry that it is such a long link. I try to shorten it, but it should still be clickable or copy paste. You do have a question, Leah, about resources for autism, ADHD, or developmental disabilities, drug use.
You want me to start that one, Leah? Yeah, such a great question, Naomi. Thank you so much. So I think one thing to think about is for kids who are struggling with mental health concerns, so like ADHD, depression, anxiety, we know that that can be a risk factor, right, for substance use. I'm not as clear in the literature about autism and developmental disabilities, but I think our approach is similar, right, for students who are struggling, right? We want to get in the coping skills, get in the refusal skills, really be building those warm, supportive relationships for kids. And when they need help, they can reach out and ask for it. I think one of the things too, if students are already using, our approach really needs to be that approach of empathy, right? Kids have so much shame already around their substance use. There seems to be so much stigma. But I think approach for a student is, I see you struggling, there's help, I want to support you. And we really want to be treating substance use disorders as the biomedical disease that they are. I think sometimes our like go-to is to respond with punishment or anger, but really we want to like help our young people to connect them with care and to connect them with support. So definitely thanks that's a really great question. I think that something we can really think about, but definitely I think for our young people that are struggling, they often are at more risk. And so it's a really important question that you raise.
Megan, thanks for letting me know. We're happy to, we do have a recording that we'll edit and we'll be posting on our Face University website. So that'll be out next week if you want to catch up.
Yeah, and I see your point there too. More examples there, Naomi, and the adolescent brain, right? So we just want to strengthen those on second thought skills, right? When kids are struggling, they're making impulsive choices. We want to really work with them on some of those scenarios, on some of that prevention to really help them to, when they're in situations, right? Not act on their first impulse, but really apply those decision-making skills as well.
From my understanding, there's a question about if there are questions asked about getting Narcan at the library. So we just learned about this resource relatively recently, and to my knowledge, should be just a quick training, and then you should receive the Narcan. There shouldn't be any questions asked. And in that link that is in the slideshow that I know Jasmine has shared out, there's other resources as well. Denver Health has a vending machine, a free vending machine that you can walk up to. Again, no questions asked and get it for free. And then also, if you have Medicaid, you can get it from any pharmacy at no cost as well. And Robin, I'm reading your comment right now. I agree. I think that education on harm reduction is really important, and that, yeah, education on why people should carry Narcan. You can't use it on yourself. There should be no shame in carrying it. And also, there is no harm in using it if you administer it to somebody who is, for example, experiencing a different medical concern, a seizure or something else, and it's not an overdose, it wouldn't harm them. Jasmine Nicole is asking about sharing her address. You'll reach out about that, correct?
Yes, I should have an email or a phone number. If I do not have your address already, I will reach out to everybody about that tomorrow. So just be looking for that. Thanks.
Rita, I'm reading your concern that there's not beds available for youth treatment. We've heard that as well. Um, my understanding is the Denver Health STEP main campus does have availability. Last we heard, is that correct, Haley?
Yeah, so Denver Health has the adolescent detox, and then I think also availability for their like hospitalization program, their other programs like IOP and partial hospitalization. So they would definitely be, there's actually a treatment line for Denver Health that can connect you with those resources as well.
I want to appreciate, just shout out everyone who's jumping in with some answers about Narcan in the chat. A few people who work at the Denver Public Library or who have gone and gotten Narcan at the library, and it's free and no questions asked.
Megan has a great point here about screen addiction as well, which is we didn't prepare slides there, but you know, obviously our focus, our specialty is substance use, but definitely a lot of parents are bringing forward that same concern about their students and their digital wellness and feeling like screen addiction is a really big issue for among our youth, and maybe that's a future topic, Jasmine.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks for bringing that up. You can see a lot of our calendar on our Face University website on what's to come. We host a session on big conversations with little children every year, specific to mental health. We have other programs such as our Common Kind program. So a variety of resources there, but I think there's always room to add in more topics and get more specific. So thank you for the feedback. We'll keep working on adding more in.
Carolyn, I saw a question about booklets available with tonight's information. We do have a website, which I will put into the chat, which doesn't have all of the information we have. We also have ordered some great booklets from Operation Parent, which usually I have on my desk, and I don't know what happened to it. If you want to email us, we can find a way to get you a booklet, and that does have information for parents for everything from substance use to that screen addiction piece as well, and how to talk to your kids. Yeah, and if you're interested in a booklet, please reach out and we can get them out to your child's school, or find a way to get them to you. So feel free to send us an email.
Thanks, Desiree. Yes, I will add everybody that attended tonight to our Face University newsletter. I'll keep you up to date on future sessions that we're hosting. Next month, we are focused on family meals, which has a connecting at the table piece, not quite mental health specifically. But we also have summer programs presenting and a lot of other valuable resources coming up soon. Okay. If you have questions, feel free to continue to post them. We'll stay on here for a few minutes longer. But if you've completed that survey or plan to complete it on your own time sometime tonight or tomorrow, you are welcome to go. We really appreciate you being here, though, and have an incredible night.